You're about to watch a video that's an excerpt of one of my online courses, free sample if you will. If you enjoy it, please get in touch, dan@brojo.org, and let me know what you think. So let's talk about managing a counterattack, especially when it's done with a manipulative intent. So it's one of the most common tactics that you're going to deal with somebody who's resistant to being challenged or obeying boundaries, someone who's deliberately disrespectful, but also just from people who have lost control of their emotions temporarily and are just in a conflict from being confronted. And that is to turn the tables, to attack you while you're trying to confront them about their behavior. It will usually take one of two forms. They'll either say, you do it too, and kind of try to negate their own bad behavior by saying that you're no better, or they'll bring up a different type of behavior that you do that they think bothers them or is objectively bad morally, something like that, in an effort to kind of show that you are not in a position above them, to give commentary on their behavior, to kind of gaslight you into believing that you don't have a right to set a boundary because you're either a hypocrite from doing the exact same behavior, or you're a hypocrite from just being a bad person in general. One of the things you've always got to remember when somebody counterattacks you during a confrontation is that if they really had a problem with this, they would have brought it up earlier. It's just too much of a coincidence that now is the time they think to bring it up. So this is how you know it's a manipulation. Whether it's intentional or unintentional doesn't really matter, because they're bringing it up now. They're bringing it up as a reaction to you bringing up your own problem. And you can reasonably assume that they wouldn't have brought this up unless they wanted to use it as a tool to control you. Sometimes even the confrontation itself is attacked. You know, your style of conversation, the way you're coming at them. It's a kind of distraction technique where they'll make it look like you're the bad person for the way you're confronting them, and that the way you're confronting them and seeing the boundary is worse than whatever behavior you're confronting them on. They might say that you're being judgmental, or that you're being aggressive, or they may even try to gaslight you and say that you're lying or denying that what you're saying is true, that you're not remembering things properly, and so on. You've just got to hold strong here. It's as simple as that. And by holding strong, what I mean is you do not allow anything, no matter how rational or sensible or reasonable it might sound, no matter how elevated or agitated or outraged they get, nothing is allowed to take you off topic. They never have a good reason to take you off topic. You're the one that initiated this confrontation. You're the one that has a boundary to set. That's what this conversation is about, and nothing else. So you can either firmly state something like, I will not tolerate you changing the topic. We're staying on point. I will not put up with this kind of distraction manipulation. Words to that effect. Or if you're dealing with someone who you think, they're not really intending to be manipulative, they're someone you love, they're just having a bit of a reaction, you can be a bit gentler and say something like, look, if you have a problem with me, we'll talk about that another time. For now, we're discussing my boundary and my issue. My favorite technique for dealing with this is kind of a combination of cold silence and ruthless repetition. And what I mean by that is when they come at me with the counterattack, I'll just stare at them. Especially, I use this cold silence with people who I know or feel certain are trying to use a tactic on me. Not people who love me and care for me, but people who have an agenda about me being harmed. I'll almost act like what they're saying is absolutely ridiculous. It doesn't even deserve a response. Like I see right through them, and I'm not buying this for a second. I won't even breathe any life into it. I won't answer any of their questions. I won't respond to any of their accusations. I won't even acknowledge that they're really saying anything at all when they're not staying on topic. And then I'll just plow like a broken clock. I'll just keep repeating myself. And the thing I usually would keep repeating is, I'm not going to change the topic. We're talking about this and this alone. And they can go, rah, 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 big rant, big rant, big rant. I'll wait for them to finish. It's cold silence. Wait till they've run out of steam. And then I'm not changing the topic. We're talking about this. And I'll do this one more time more than they can. That kind of endurance and resistance where basically for every time they counterattack, you go cold and silent, and then you stay on point. And you simply outlast them. You do that one more time than they can. And that's it. Now, if they bring up anything that seems relevant, like maybe my technique in the confrontation was too aggressive, or I'm being a hypocrite and criticizing them for something that I do and they've got a reasonable case, I'll set that aside for a different conversation. I'll acknowledge that they do have something relevant and genuine to talk about, but still will stand firm that this conversation is not where we're going to be talking about it. That this is a one-way boundary setting exercise. This is not a shared discussion on our faults. Remember, you got to keep going back to that point. If they really had a problem with you doing this too, why are they only bringing it up now? Now, maybe it's because they didn't have the courage to confront you, and now that you made them angry, they finally got the courage. There could be a reasonable reason that this is the first time they're bringing it up. Doesn't matter. It's still going to be set aside for a separate conversation. You can say, okay, when we're done with this, we can talk about that, but we're not done with this yet. So you just got to be like a dog with a bone. Just do not let go of this idea of parking their separate concerns for another discussion. Yep, we can talk about that another time. Today, we're talking about this. This time, we're staying on this topic. And you're just relentless. You're assertive but calm. You don't let them elevate you. And you don't breathe any life into any of the other points they bring up. You don't even acknowledge what they say. You don't reflect it, repeat it. You don't deny it. You don't try to prove it wrong or anything. You just wait for them to finish talking and say, that's a separate topic. We'll discuss it later. You don't even justify why you won't talk about it, which will be their next move probably. Why? Why don't you want to talk about it now? Why do we have to talk about your thing, but you can't do right? You don't even go down that path. You only talk about what you came here to talk about, no matter what. Even if they ask you questions, you don't have to answer. There's no rule, no law that says you have to answer, so don't. Just say, I hear you, we'll talk about that another time. This time we're staying on this topic. No matter what they say, even if they start challenging you about doing that, you're just repeating yourself, you're patronizing, you're talking down to me. We can talk about my technique later. For now, we're going to talk about this topic. And you just show that relentlessness that even the most narcissistic manipulator will have to give up to. So take as long as you need. All you have to do is outlast them. That is the real secret to all forms of manipulation. Is you call it out, you stay strong, you last longer than they do. There's really no other technique that's more effective.